Okay.
Here we are. Hey.
Can y'all hear us?
Yeah.
Hallelujah. All right. Notice public meeting, Liberty County Commissioners Court, Liberty County, Texas. 28th of July. Can y'all believe it's already the 28th of July? And today we're going to be considering Commissioners Court to call an election to establish ESD number 8. Now y'all understand that we're not voting on establishing an ESD. We're voting on the election, okay? And as long as all the motions are correct or such as far as that is concerned, that we are ready to start listening to public discussion at this time. So anyway, we're going to listen. Who wants to be first? Okay.
Good, I'm gonna share this with you. And just a little map. Share that. Boundaries of the proposed district run something like this. I own about 90% of that.
Yeah. It goes up. What does it start about?
Yep, it starts.
Okay, so we go to the county line up over. Then how far is that?
It goes into here, just south of the Cleveland city limits.
Okay, you would show that to me, so we'll know what we're talking about.
Beyond just for how well you can see that.
Yeah.
But this is basically the proposed district, something like that. So the little red here, 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 and here kind of give you our proposed future locations for fire and EMS facilities. So, and the bulk of this property is or will be annexed by my existing district, the MMD. And so they have fire and EMS capabilities similar to an ESD. And so we've already got $100 million bonding capacity passed. So then this is our long-term fire and EMS plan. So for me, my customers pay a 35-cent property tax on it. And we'll collect the sales tax as well. And so just about everything I have, save and except parts of Grand San Jacinto and parts of Camino and parts of Montebello and Rancho. Some of those subdivisions, not all of it's in the MMD, but portions of those subdivisions are in my MMD already. Yeah. And so and all those people would end up shopping in my commercial area where I'll collect, where my MMD will collect the extra sales tax revenue. So with everything that's going on, I don't think now is a good time to try to put an extra tax on the people that are already burdened with a heavy tax. So in addition to the taxes my customers already pay, we are working with Lone Star to become part of their district. We don't want to be part of their district unless they're going to build us a campus. And they've said that they will build us a campus. It's more of a timeline. How quick can we get a campus on the ground? So this Corona has really slowed the, yes, it's hurt our progress with that, but I'm confident that it'll happen. But just how quick we get it done is a different question. So, so I don't think ESD does anything to benefit my property because my MMD already has those same powers. And we already have, like I said, $100 million bonding capabilities already passed, so we can do that. We're just waiting on 3 years of payments to the MMD. So we've got 1 year so far. And so I think it's not a good idea for any of my stuff. And if you take my stuff out, what's there, they don't have any revenue. So the ESD at 6 cents doesn't bring in any money. And so I think it's a bad idea for now, maybe something to look at down the road, but I think it's a bad idea for now.
Okay. Well, just, just to clarify once again, we're just voting on the allowance of or ordering election, really. So, the efforts that you would have in your regard and the ESD would have in their regard is education to the public, which would be the best route to go. But as far as we're concerned, it's a vote, and I'm pretty sure, Clint, that everybody did a petition, and the petition, it was signed by an adequate amount of voters, correct?
It was, and we almost did certify with the petition, so correct and accurate.
Right.
That's compliant with the law.
And we said that everybody out there whose name was on the petition.
We did.
How many signatures, Clint?
I believe 120.
Yeah, and that was a percentage of the last election. That's
No, sir, the law just, it does, I believe it says 100.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the petition is in fact true. So
It's valid, yes, sir.
Yeah, but the discretion is left to the court. Whether y'all choose to put it on the ballot or not, put it on the ballot is the discretion of the court.
right, and you're correct, but still it's a slippery slope at this point because you're asking a body, a county body of elected officials to not allow someone to vote that is asked to vote.
Well, all I'm saying is, if they're gonna have an MMD, don't double tax my people.
Yeah.
I mean, so if they want to have an MMD for the city of Plum Grove, which I think is unusual for a city to have an ESD, because the city can pass its own tax and have its own fire services, right? That's all a ESD is a quasi city anyways, with less power than a municipality. So if the city of Plum Grove wants to pass a higher tax for the city, then, or if they want to be an ESD, whatever, I guess that's fine. But what I'm asking is don't include in the boundaries of the ESD, don't include any of my stuff that's already pays a tax.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have an election, just exclude my stuff because my people already pay a tax. They're already paying for the same services. So why would we even want to put that on the ballot to double tax the people that are in my subdivisions?
Let's see if we get some clarification from the
Hey.
folks.
Trey, can I say something?
Sure.
So it's important to notate that the legislature has already set out the priorities, and I can appreciate the commissioner's comment that, hey, why not just let the public vote on it? But the statute specifically sets out that it's for the commissioners to decide if that's in the best interest of the public for it to be put to a vote. And so it's critical here that we have the commissioners take a hard look at this, if this is really a good idea. And secondly, I would want for the commissioners to notate that a large part of the boundaries in this ESD is not yet developed. And so those particular voters are not being represented at this time. And so we're counting on the commissioners to represent them, even though they don't exist yet. And so we're asking the commissioners to make a decision on behalf of the public at large of voters that aren't even there yet. And I'm going to read directly from the statute. This is section 775.017 discussing this specific hearing. And it says, if after the hearing, the commissioners court finds that creation of the district is feasible and will promote the public safety, welfare, health, and convenience of persons residing in the proposed district, then they grant the petition. And so I would say to the commissioners that it's not feasible because these services are already being provided within our area, and it does not promote the public safety, welfare, health, or convenience. It does not meet any of those elements. And in fact, Mr. Harris is saying, why would this even be proposed? This is not a problem that needs to be fixed. We already have a solution here. So what is the intent of the other team? Why do they want to take over EMS services for our area?
Well, what,
Okay,
who's
time out.
providing it now?
Just a minute. One at a time, okay? Are you done for a minute?
Yeah.
If so, I'll get Leanne to come up here.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello, Court. How are you today?
Doing good.
Who was speaking a minute ago? Which one of you was saying that, who provides those services for you right now? Plum Grove Volunteer Fire Department. Let me give you a number. In 2010, Plum Grove ran, and I'm being generous, 40 calls. In 2019, they ran 544. Let me do the math for you guys. That's 1,200% increase of calls on our fire department, a volunteer fire department. Now, Mr. Harris just talked about his long-term plan. We're hearing about the long-term plan today. It's 2020. Where was his long-term plan in 2010? Now, because have you ever seen these plans before? Yeah, well, you were buying land and you were coming in 2011 and 12, and you had dump trucks that were running, and they were causing wrecks, and they were getting in people's yards.
Let's stick to the ESD.
And so the ESD, when we're doing it, so we have a 1,200% increase in calls for the Plum Grove Volunteer Fire Department. Who's been handling that? City of Plum Grove Fire Department. Now, Colony Ridge made absolutely no monetary contribution to the fire department.
Not true.
A monthly call until 2017, when I was asked as mayor. I'm not finished.
Not true.
Until,
But you're still.
and they said $400 a month. And so I asked the chiefs, hey, if Plum Grove's going to pay you $400 a month, why can't Elmore take? I'm coming to that, Trey. Prior to that, Colony Ridge had put in a parking lot that was valued at what?
30,000.
30,000. That's a big bid, but we'll say 30,000. And then they donated some appliances. Let's say 2,500 on that, since you gouged your 30,000. And so over a 10-year period or 8-year period of 1,200 increase in calls, that's what they've given to the fire department. Now they're talking about their long-term plan. As a developer, I usually have my long-term plan on the day I submit my first plat. So when they submitted Bella Vista, Montebello, Camino Real, and they were including thousands and thousands of lots that were going to be sold, they didn't take into consideration Cleveland ISD, and they didn't take into consideration the impact that they were going to have on the Plum Grove Fire Department. Now the Plum Grove Fire Department, and if you recall, guys, and I hate that Ernest isn't here today, but Ernest Bells and 4331, 4341, which are the MUD and the MMD that this court permitted to happen, and they agreed to let it go forward, not one Colony Ridge landowner got to vote if they wanted to be in an MMD. So now Colony Ridge is sitting here telling you, my people, they don't want it. Well, they didn't want your MMD or your MUD either. And you forced it on them, not by vote, but by legislation, because he knew he wouldn't get the vote. Now, I represent 120 signatures on a petition. I've spoken to 140 something people in 4 days. Out of them, only 12 people are against the ESD. 12. Everybody else wants to support their local fire department. I thought that Colony Ridge was supposed to, per legislation, provide them with land to build another Plum Grove Fire Department. But now, because of the monopoly that Colony Ridge wants to have, they want to control the ESD too. We're not asking you guys to approve the ESD. We're just saying let the people in Plum Grove vote. And I want to know if this court is going to tell the people of Plum Grove, we didn't take your opinion when we were allowing this irresponsible development, but now that you're trying to deal with it and the overload that is put on the fire department, we're going to try to shoot you down. Because Colony Ridge wants us to, and they're proposing a long-term plan. Well, we have a plan. We're ready to go now. We're ready to vote. If the people in Plum Grove voted down in November, vote it down. It didn't make it. If they voted in, they voted in. Why in the world would Colony Ridge want to stop Plum Grove from having a vote? And as far as his MMD, the last that I heard, they were trying to expand it. Colony Ridge's MMD does not cover all of its lots because you cannot put an MMD on a lot where somebody is already living. They have to request to be placed in that MMD. We've been dealing with issues where the appraisal district tried to charge people for the MMD and they weren't in it. They have to go through Plum Grove because they're in our ETJ to get their MMD and MUD expanded. It was turned down last year in August. So all those lots that he's talking about, you're not double taxing those people out there that live in his subdivision. A lot of them don't pay the MMD or the MUD. If you remember, Ernest gave that around the Grand San Jacinto and the Santa Fe by the 99. The people who live in Camino Real, Montebello, Bella Vista, any other places out there, guys, I'm forgetting, they all depend on the Plum Grove Fire Department. That has been impacted 1,200%. That's the numbers, guys. 40 calls in 2010, 544 in 2019. So we want you to support it. We're not telling you to force it on them. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. It shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yes, sir.
So good here.
Yes, sir. You bet.
I don't know.
Let everybody know who you are, sir.
My name is Brandon Frazier. I really appreciate the interaction between Mr. Harris and the person that was speaking. It almost sounded like it was pre-scripted. I reached out to all the commissioners, or several of the commissioners. I got to say there was one I couldn't, and I didn't really get a response when I offered to reach out about the ESD. So I'm glad somebody got to speak to him. Sorry, little nervous. My name is Brandon Frazier. I'm the current assistant chief for Plum Grove Volunteer Fire Department. I have more than 14 years emergency service experience. I'm what's often referred to as, all right.
You're good. Yeah.
I'm often what's referred to as a career professional firefighter, a law enforcement officer, an arson investigator, a paramedic, and I hold a bachelor's degree in fire science. I would love to spend my time telling you how amazing Plum Grove Volunteer Fire Department is, how they went from being 2 barely functional trucks and sitting in an open field to a fully functional fire station with more than 10 vehicles, how they've committed to hundreds of on-station hours every month, met and exceeded all agreements, standards, and expectations nonstop. But since my time's limited, I'll tackle a few questions I know have already been presented. First and foremost, many times throughout my time in the fire service, and especially in Plum Grove, I've been told how great of a job Plum Grove Fire Department does, but then it's usually followed by some type of statement like, how does, or the need for a paid fire department is there, and my apologies for any offenses. Well, I'm here to educate you today on the difference between a volunteer fire department and a paid fire department. The answer is very simple, and it's funding. Volunteer fire departments have the ability to train, hold certification, improve ISO standards, respond to calls, purchase equipment, build, and engage in community events, no different than a paid department. Literally, the only difference is funding. That allows them to make purchases and get paid staff. The next thing that I'd like to address is the questions revolving the overlapping districts of the ESD and the MMD. From a legal standpoint, Health and Safety Code 775.0205 clearly addresses this issue. And the only restriction that's placed on the creation of the ESD is if there's another district created under Health and Safety Code 775, which the MMD absolutely is not. Furthermore, the codes under the MMD where it was created don't restrict the creation of the ESD with the ability to encompass the MMD. Both entities are legally allowed to exist in the same area at the same time by law. Another question that was presented in the last, or by the Commissioner's Court, was doesn't the MMD already have the ability to do things that the ESD does? And the answer to that is a pretty simple question. The focus of the MMD is development based. It has some additional powers such as funding police, fire, and EMS, amongst several other things. The primary focus of an ESD is emergency services. It has additional powers such as code enforcement and other related emergency issues. Our focus is very different, and I can promise you that the fire department is far more knowledgeable of the community needs regarding emergency services as it grows. We know where the fire station should be built relating to call volume, response times, availability of water supply, where the developer standpoint is going to be extremely different. Their focus is going to be where does it fit into their design or what looks good. It's not going to be looking at things like inaccessibility due to rising waters, damaged bridges, and access to shelters. Running a fire department is far more than just throwing up a pretty building and putting some people in it that are paid to say, hey, they're present. It's mutual aid contracts, it's grant agreements, it's certification management, and several other things. It's constant updated knowledge of NFPA and ISO standards, purchases of equipment with safety standards. It's knowledge and compliance with radio frequency standards and many other things that I challenged the developer's knowledge of when he made his emergency plan. From a ethical standpoint, the theory that the ESD should not be able to be formed because the MMD could do some of the things that an ESD could do is faulty thinking at best. Under the same logic, the MMD shouldn't exist because the things that it does, the county could do. The county could have law enforcement. The county could erect buildings. The county could lay roads. I said, so to dismiss the ESD simply because the MMD and the ESD could have some similar things that they could do would literally mean that the MMD shouldn't exist either. Just plain and simple. While we're on the topic of what they could do, the fire departments had made tremendous gains with only $60,000 a year. With less than $60,000 a year. Adding rescue trucks to our fleet. We're now in the final stages of a grant for a second building, and all that with just a little bit of money. Imagine what we could do with an ESD. The MMD was created in 2017. It's collected millions of dollars in tax revenue with its 35 cents on every $100 of property value plus sales tax. And I don't know what it's done towards emergency services specifically at this point. I can tell you that we've had an increase in call volume at 30%, around 30% every year. And we've worked really hard to keep going and keep building, and we've grown constantly with the little bit we got. So imagine what we could do as an ESD. Additionally, the MMD does not span the entire district, which you've already heard today. And to force the ESD to not happen, or to put it in position to not happen, slowly forces the fire department out of existence due to lack of funding and the growing population and call volume. And I mean, this would honestly be an irresponsible, immoral and unethical thing, especially considering MMDs have what's often referred to as a sunset clause. Right? At some point, the development's going to end. At some point, the developer is going to move on. And at that point, a new plan is going to have to be proposed for that that MMD. And it's going to have to be based off of maintenance, and it's going to maintenance of the area and go to public vote. So y'all have been here a long time. You tell me if you give the public an option of a 35-cent tax that was forced on them by legislation, if they're going to choose to keep it or not. And if they don't keep it, what happens with the emergency services plan that was so great that was created at that point? It's gone. And now Plum Grove Fire Department has been forced out of existence. And what are they going to do? Who's going to pick up the pieces? Because they've been forced out of existence by this MMD. So the last thing I have to say is that this ESD is the will of the people. The people of the community requested this petition be drafted and signed it. It isn't often that the community reaches out and says, hey, we're willing to take this on and we're willing to be taxed. And this is what you're seeing. This is what this petition is. So I'm asking you to allow the will of the people to go to vote as they requested legally and lawfully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Brent Lane, attorney for Colony Ridge, I'd like to speak just for a brief second.
All right.
One correction, I assume that the honorable officer that just spoke is not an MMD expert, but I am an expert in MMDs, and the MMD does not stop when the developer leaves. It is run by the people that it governs. It is a governmental body that continues, just like the local government. So that is not true. There won't be any pieces to pick up in the future. Secondly, they've continued to represent the people that are for the ESD, that they've gathered all these signatures and this is the will of the people. No, this is the will of the people in their area. I would like to know how many signatures were gathered from people that live in the Colony Ridge subdivisions. But I don't think that this represents the will of the people that live in the Colony Ridge subdivisions.
They have to be legal to vote, Brent. They can't sign it if they aren't legal to vote. They wanted to, they're just not registered voters because they're not legal citizens.
So is that a no answer?
So is that a no, what you're saying?
No, they wanted to sign it.
There were-
They wouldn't count their signature.
There were several people from out in the area that signed it, but a lot of them had to turn around and say, hey, I'm not able to vote, so I can't sign it. Several of the ones that did sign it, some of them got excluded because they weren't in the system appropriately. So, you know, some had to turn away even though they wanted to sign it, and some signed it and ended up getting knocked off the total count at the end, to be honest.
And the election officer can verify that, Judge.
So, Judge, if I may, in order for this to be something the commissioners want to promote, and as far as the MMD having millions of dollars, that's not true. The MMD's collected money once, and that was this past year. And so the amount of money that they collected is substantially less than $1 million. And so they're not able to sell bonds yet, and they're not able to fund fire and EMS yet because they don't have the money. And so, but that will change soon. And so for this to be something that the commissioners consider to put on the ballot, it would have to promote the welfare, health and welfare of the people in the district. And the majority of the people in the district are already paying for these exact same services
that they're not receiving.
They're not
We are
receiving them.
already established providing these services. That
You're misleading.
You are-
You called me a liar a minute again. Now
you
you're
are
lying.
charging people
No,
and not
okay.
providing any service.
That's spelled Liar.
So
Denise.
in order for this to be something for you to consider, it's supposed to be, it would need to promote the welfare, health and welfare of the people in the district.
3
And
years
it
to
does
provide
not.
those services.
It does not do that. And
So I
so
want to speak. If you want to speak, let me know. I'll get you up here to speak. Okay.
Go over it, Chris.
One at a time, please.
So those services that my customers already pay for, and the people that are in the bulk of the line share, and the majority of the people in the district will not benefit from this ESD. It will not promote health and welfare. It won't do anything for them. And so, and way before the ESD can ever raise the money, if y'all approved it, and if it got on the ballot, and if it got approved by the voters, they're a long way from ever having any money to do anything. And so way before they would ever be able to do anything for, as far as promote the health and well-being of the people in the district, my MMD will be well-funded and be able to provide those services well in advance that they could ever provide them. And so there is no reason to include any of my property in an ESD. If they want to have an ESD, that's fine for them. If Plum Grove wants to have it and they want to have it on the stuff that's not my property, that's fine. I just don't think they don't make any money. And so, and my people already pay for those services. And the people that they're saying, well, some of his stuff is not in the district, those people will still go shop, and I'll still collect the sales tax from those people. So
I got a question real quick. Who drew the lines for the district?
Is the district they cover now?
Just a minute.
The lines of the district are the current fire department district that is established and outlined by the Texas Forestry Service.
Mhm.
It's the district that we've had for as far back as we've had district lines.
Okay. Which would be 1968, is what you're saying?
71.
71? Okay.
So that the boundaries weren't specific to mess with anybody. Those were what we've covered to date. Those are the things we've been doing. The responses we've been making, sir.
They've been running that territory for 8 years for his community.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what is it? Could is a useless word. Long-term plan, now when you're talking about Colony Ridge, basically you're telling, after they knock something down, they want to go pick it up. No, they should have knocked it down in the first place. They've impacted this fire department at a rate, wrecks, call volumes, shootings, fires. I mean, Judge, if y'all want to make it better, make it where they can't burn their wood. Be like Montgomery County, tell them they have to put it in a container and take it off. There are guys, and we can give you hundreds of videos where his residents who are not represented here today will set a fire on Sunday at noon, and then they haul butt back home and they burn 77 acres. Now, who goes out there and puts it out? Now, is Trey out there, or he, or John, or Colleen Ridge, any of them putting out the fire? No, they're calling this fire department to do it, and please save timber on our other lots. Now, they haven't been picking up the phone to call anybody but Plum Grove for, what year was it, Trey, 2013? 7 years, which, by the way, Judge, since I used it 2010 to 2020 to show the growth was much more detrimental if you used from 2013 to 2020. It's only 7 years that call volume has increased.
Okay. Well, what I'm looking at, it's some enormous growing pains and an opportunity for both parties.
One shouldn't impact the other.
Then change your lines about that.
Why would it change our lives when they've already been out there working?
I mean, it's obvious what I'm hearing right now, and Brent, I'm sure Brent Lane, you probably understand this too. It seems that there is a big difference between what Plum Grove wants and what Holly Ridge wants.
But his people signed the
Just
petition
one second.
also.
Come on up, but I'm gonna let you talk. Yeah.
His people signed the petition also, Jay. So it's his people, who do they get now when they call? They don't get Colony Ridge's fire department, they get Plum Grove. And you guys have allowed Plum Grove to cover that area. You down their money in their budgets. I mean, evidently, Judge, it must really need them out there, or Mr. Harris would be trying to procure a fire marshal in your meeting that's about to start. So why is there a need for a fire marshal if they've already got it covered when our guys have been covering it? I mean, I don't understand. In one breath, you're telling us at 8:30 that he
So
doesn't need
is
it,
she
and
gonna
at
talk
9
about
o'clock,
that?
well, don't give me that,
before I
man.
get- or-
And at one moment, at
before I
9
get
o'clock, he's
something.
saying he
So-
does. Now, our firemen, why would you take away their ability to do it when they're the ones who've been providing it all this time? Because he might provide it in the future? We don't know. Sounds good. Why didn't he provide it in 2015 or 2017? Why didn't they start right then when Ernest Fells gave them the money to the MMD? Why didn't they get started right then? We sat down, Judge, August of 2017, you, me, Greg, he, and Trey. When did Trey lose it? You were in the meeting too, Chris. When did Trey lose it? When he found out that an ESD could put building codes on his people.
I can attest.
And you were there, Judge. You were sitting in that meeting.
With Trey.
You were sitting in that meeting,
Yes,
and that's when he
you were
lost
in
it
that
and started calling his attorney. And so, Judge, why do we have fire codes? Why do we have building codes? What were they originated for? To protect our firefighters when they go into homes and fight fires. When you're building out of pallets and blue tars, that puts our people in jeopardy. Yeah, they're gonna build a house one day, but right now they're sitting in a 1964 mobile home that's full of asbestosis. Our guys are going in and dealing with it. So the reason that Colony Ridge, Brent Lane, so you probably know this, is because they don't want building codes enforced on them by the ESD. Now, Judge, that's your job, enforcing building codes out there, right? That's your job. Now, I don't think that's what Plum Grove's really wanting to do, is go out there and tell Colony Ridge how they have to build buildings. I think they want to go out there and fight fires and save lives.
Building codes is one thing that we can't enforce, and you know that, in an incorporated area of the county. Now,
But an ESD can,
fire codes we can.
and an ESD can.
But that doesn't fall on us, that falls on your fire marshal's office to take care of. And that's not our intent here. Our intent is to help us to be able to provide better services to the community. We're already established. He's saying it's gonna take him 3 years. That's behind the ball because we've been here since 71 and ESD will do nothing but help us continue to provide funding to be able to grow our department, to provide better services to the community that we've been serving since 1971.
And it will allow them to get an ISO rating also, Judge. One of the key elements why I'm supporting it and why they got 120 signatures is because with an ISO rating, where I pay $1,000 a month for fire insurance, when they start getting their ratings, it'll go down 800, then 600, and the better the rating, the lower it goes down. For the people who are being taxed, then that's gonna level off what they're paying in property taxes. You understand the economics too, Judge.
Sure. One of the reasons we have a public hearing so we can vet all this out. Okay, and it's obvious that as far as,
Well, and that's what I'm not to interrupt you, Judge, but they're saying that the intent of this is, nobody knows our intent. Well, I'll tell you our intent. Our intent is to be able to provide better services.
yes,
We work with a budget of $58,000 a year from the county. And we service almost 55 square miles with a 1,200% increase in call volume since 2013. We're going down.
Mhm.
That's why we're trying to make arrangements to help that funding, to be able to get us to a point where we can level off and be able to provide better services.
I've got a question real quick. Clint, as far as the ESD is concerned, you sit on the board with the ESD. What's the rate you're looking at? Is it 3 cents per 100?
6 cents on every 1 minute.
6 cents?
Add one.
Yeah, what would that do?
Okay. Our population.
Yeah, y'all go up the chair and just say.
Nobody's allowed to come in.
I do represent Hardin ESD, and most other ESDs in this county do follow us. If
This one-
Okay, hey, tell him come up.
you almost got me trained. Okay. If an ESD passes today, it goes before election in November, then an ESD will get a tax appraisal. It'll take about a year before you get 1 dime, okay? That's property taxes only. Sales tax, I think the cap in Texas is, in Liberty County is about 2 cents. I don't know the Plum Grove tax rate. Y'all probably maxed out on your sales tax.
But they
But
said
again, it's irrelevant though, because we're not the city of Plum Grove Fire Department. We're in-
I understand. I know exactly where you're at. I know all about your funding. Believe me, I know what you need. I know about support, and yes, that's what an ESD is there to do. Remember, I'm just the messenger.
I'm just clarifying.
You have an ESD can get a sales tax in the county. I will tell you, that's where most of our ESDs in this county revenue comes from. Our sales tax, to answer your question, Hardin has about a $400 million valuation on our taxes on our property in my particular jurisdiction. We are taxed at 3 cents on the 100 because that's what my voters capped. Your jurisdiction will be 6 cents. An ESD can go up to 10 cents by state statute, but your voters are saying 6 cents is going to be my cap. Right now, I bring in about $100,000. So you'll probably get in 200,000. Now your value should be a whole lot more than my jurisdiction. That's 400 million. I don't know what yours is. You can do the math. That answers your question. They'll probably at least get 200,000 by the end of the first. You'll have a year of no funding, and then you'll start getting your funding, and then it'll just increase in the unincorporated areas of wherever your jurisdiction is. Their ESD proposed lines is pretty much the voting precinct in that area.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's it.
So again, the ESD does absolutely nothing for the people in my communities. If they want to have their own ESD, more power to them, let them go ahead. But if so, you have the right to amend the boundaries of the ESD, and you have the right to, if you don't think it's in the best welfare of the people and it serves the people, majority of the people there, then it's your obligation to vote it down and don't put it on the ballot. And so I'm asking you to, that this does not help the vast majority of the people in the district. So I'm asking you to either cut my stuff out of being the property they own in my neighborhoods and let them have their own ESD. And that doesn't bother me, but
take my stuff out, amend the boundaries. And then if Plum Grove wants it and they want to vote on it in November, let them vote on it. But my people don't want it. My neighborhoods don't want it and they don't need it. And it doesn't promote health and welfare for my neighborhood. We've already got a plan in place. We've already got the money. We've already got everything we need to move forward with the plan that I have. And so I don't need Leanne, and I don't need any help from these guys or from an ESD to provide those services in my neighborhood.
So if you're gonna reduce the lines, they know that
So
they get a call.
So all I'm saying is, if they want it, I'm fine with that. Just amend the boundaries to exclude everything that I. And all my
Well,
neighbors.
you didn't exclude that when you came in and they've been running calls for you. That means we'll get you some, son.
Come get you some.
I really want.
Oh,
Hey.
And so, I'm asking you, and it is your responsibility to do what's best for the people, and the ESD is not what's best for the people. And so, I'm gonna ask you to either exclude my stuff, all my neighborhoods, and exclude the property that I own, and let them have their ESD, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't object to that. But I don't need it, and it don't promote health and well-being in my neighborhoods. So, if they want it, exclude my stuff and let them have it, or just do away with it altogether.
Clint, I know you got something on your mind here.
I do.
Yeah.
Let me speak to the jurisdictional boundaries as is being presented to the court today. The petition that was received in my office has a particular boundary line that the voters are requesting. You cannot cut it out, not today, not with this petition. The question before the court today is, do we allow this particular jurisdiction and the boundary lines that the petition does certify? Are we going to allow that to go to vote today or not? If you say no and you want it to get withdrawn, then you have to vote it down and a new petition would have to be presented, but you cannot alter the lines of this petition today.
Would we meet the time frame for the November vote if they shoot it down, Clint? No.
It would be a very hard stretch to get it done. I think we have to have an election by August 23rd. We have to call it. It'd be tough.
It would be tough, Judge. We'd have to start all over again. We've already started over twice on this.
Okay, I got you.
It's Brent, attorney for Colony Ridge. Are we certain about that legal advice that's being given? Because I'm reading the petition approval right out of the statute, and it says at this hearing, one of the duties of the commissioner's court is to fix the district's boundaries. That clearly infers that they do have the authority to amend the boundaries. So I'm curious about that legal advice that's being given to the court. And maybe perhaps Matthew Poston would be a better person to consult with when getting legal advice.
Well, if the proposed district, according to its boundaries stated in the petition, is located wholly in a county with a population of more than 3.3 million, the Commissioner's Court may amend the petition to change the boundaries if they find it is necessary or desirable. We are not in a county with a population of more than 3.3 million. So unfortunately, while I certainly appreciate it and I would encourage Commissioner's Court to come to me for advice, I think Clint's right on that.
Okay. All right, now, the next question is, are we able today to vote?
No, I think that there's still some kind of housekeeping matters that we need to clean up. What I don't want to see is, for whatever reason, if it did go to the vote and it got shot down, that it wouldn't survive a legal challenge later on. So I want to make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed.
Yeah.
There's some things that I'm not sure that we've done exactly correctly. We're still in time, I believe, if we take action today to have it but we got to do all that immediately.
Okay.
There are two 21-day notice periods that have to be provided to get it on the November election. The first one, and they're pretty much identical, luckily, under the section of the code. But one kind of weird question I have is, what newspapers y'all get out there?
What they're gonna probably follow is they're gonna use your, probably gonna use the Cleveland or the Liberty Vindicator.
Well, here's the weird thing, it says general circulation in the proposed district.
And you'll probably use the Blue Monitor Cleveland. If they follow our area, I mean, what?
No, I know, it's weird. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, it's-
So anything that's in that circulation in the newspapers.
Yes.
It's Cleveland's mailing district.
This is beneath.
Like Atlantic is not an existing.
Exactly,
Right.
so we're talking probably about, what, Chronicle, is there a Montgomery County paper that'll?
We use the Courier. We use the Conroe Courier.
The Conroe
That
Courier
is, I mean, that is who our attorneys have established as the local. that
is your official newspaper.
Yes, the Courier and the Vindicator.
It has to be printed media.
Yeah, it has to be printed media once
Yes,
a week.
it has to be.
you know.
And so we use the Courier because of that, and we use the Vindicator. And that's who they'll probably vote. They'll probably use both.
Okay.
Because now the advocate, that puts us in a weird position.
No, I know, it's in here, that this is one of the issues.
And Conroe Courier is expensive too, just so you don't know. You don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in general circulation form, isn't it?
That is Conroe Courier and the
People get it.
Vindicator.
That's the Houston Chronicle.
Yeah. Oh,
The Courier is the Houston Chronicle. Yeah, that was part of.
Matthew,
Yeah.
okay, so what you're telling me at this point in time, that you feel like that
It's correct.
we've not taken, or the steps have not been taken to properly make a decision on this today. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that y'all could,
I can't hear you, brother.
oh, that's all right. Y'all could accept, but you cannot grant the petition today based on the notice that we've had. The notice more or less has to mirror the provisions of the petition, and the legal description contained in the petition has to be contained within that notice. It has to be posted at the courthouse door for 21 days, and also has to be run in the newspaper twice a week during that same period. Now, the election code notice period for the election mirrors under the special provisions of 775 that same notice. So as long as we can get, depending on the publisher's timetable, as long as we can squeeze those two in, we should be just fine. But it's going to take.
Let me ask you, Matthew.
Yeah.
I want your opinion as we sit here and listen.
Yes.
Would it be best to, let's go ahead and table this for the time being and make sure that everything's done accordingly?
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna, then, based on your opinion and your advice, I'm going to make the motion that we table this today. Let's make sure that everything's done accordingly.
What we do need, hold on a second, we'll say this, what we do need is to set a date and time, and it can be special, it doesn't have to be regular.
That's fine.
On that timetable so that we can know that it can happen.
Okay, well, give us a date and time that needs to be where it is all proper, Matthew, and then I'll make that motion.
The
Meeting yet.
We're not in the meeting yet.
Public hearing.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to say at the moment?
I just have a question on procedure. Judge.
Sure.
Should we be texting commissioners while we're sitting here?
Big part?
Should we be sending text messages to commissioners while we're sitting here? It's just a question. Is it legal?
I don't have my phone, so I can't
No,
tell you.
I'm not asking you. I'm just asking, is it okay for people that are sitting away from us on Zoom? Can you be texting them during this meeting and carry on conversations?
Typically, no, the whole conversation about whatever's being discussed.
So if any open records requests were done on people's phones for this time period or the last time period, and we could see that text messages were going from individuals to commissioners.
Could be, I don't want to get into the intricacies.
Okay, I was just asking before I send my open records request, it's highly inappropriate, correct?
It could be.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, I'm over the car.
Well, I'm not worried about y'all. There's some people at home that are texting that I'm more concerned about, or in their office. It's just a question, Judge. I don't do it in my meeting, so I didn't think you would allow it here in your court either.
I had to know about it to even.
Okay. And so, I mean, you know how that works, open records requests and stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get them all the time. It's one of the fun things of my job. All right, so is that all we have as far as this public hearing today? You've offered a lot of questions. And we need to get some answers, and we also need to get the proper procedure to get this vote brought forward, at least by the Commissioner's Court, to allow or disallow election. So, with that being said, let's close this public hearing, and we'll move on to the Commissioner's Court meeting. Does anyone need a break before we do that? I do. Okay, we're gonna close. Just a quick restroom break is all. That's it.